to All About Boston. I'm Seth McCoy. We are continuing our series of having the at-large city council candidates in the studio. Tonight my guests are Francisco White, Ayanna Presley, and Douglas Juan. I hope you stay tuned for the whole hour, but if you have to run away, you can certainly tune back in throughout the week to catch reruns or visit us on YouTube or Facebook, and you can watch the show in its entirety over and over again. So my first guest is Francisco White. If you have a question for us, you can call us here at 617-708-3290. Francisco, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. It's great to finally be here.
I know, you were supposed to be here, was it last week?
It was, yes.
And tied up in traffic or?
Yeah, some family issues I had to work out, but.
Yes, but you're here now and that's great because it'll give people at home an opportunity to learn more about you because of course with so many people running for this seat, for the 4 at-large council seats, when you guys go to forums, it's like, you know, you're fighting to get your words in. So here you have at least a block of time where you can communicate directly with voters. So why are you running?
Why am I running? You know, I feel like I've been asked that question, I don't know, 1,000 times in the last 4 months. And I feel like a political campaign kind of trains candidates to respond to that particular question with a list of issues, usually 3 issues. Basically, how I like to respond to that question is by saying, I may not be able to name them all, but there are over 600,000 reasons why I'm running for Boston City Council at large this year. I'm the former youth coordinator for Mass Vote, and in that role, I was sent directly into underrepresented communities throughout the city, and I was able to have necessary conversations then that I didn't know would influence my campaign just months later. So, you know, I'm running to improve the quality of public schools for all children in BPS without regard to their race or income level or zip code. I'm running because there's a lack of truly affordable housing in Boston. And these are issues that I want to resolve. In a recent interview, I said that Boston is really a city that attracts thinkers and people who want to cause change and contribute positively. Right. We just have trouble keeping those people in the city.
That is very, very true because a lot of times what happens is people come here, they go to school here, they might stay here a couple years after they graduate, and then they move off to other places because it's more affordable or they're better paying jobs outside of the city. So yeah, there is a need to retain people, and also people, once they get a little older and start getting married and having kids, they're moving out of the city because of the Boston public school system. Yeah. So it's a huge issue. And I just read today that rents in Boston have increased, I forget the percentage, but you know, it's a couple $100 compared to just a few years ago. So it's, you know, we're kind of pricing people out. So it's definitely a problem. Did you ever think you were going to run for office? Was it something that you thought about as a kid?
Absolutely not. I definitely wasn't the kid who said he was going to be president when he grew up. I'm a writer by nature. I was actually studying writing and literature and then communications. I really point to the work that I've done with youth in the greater Boston area as my main inspiration for deciding to run.
What were some of the issues that you dealt with the youth that you've heard that you want to carry over if you're elected?
Yeah, you know, it all goes back to schools for me. Like I said, I was the youth coordinator for Mass Vote, but prior to that position, I actually was an academic tutor at a youth build campus in Cambridge. So I was working with kids from Chelsea and Boston and Cambridge who had felt like the public schools had failed them. I myself am a high school dropout, so I can really relate to that feeling. You know, just day in and day out working with those people, with those young people who, you know, are so candid about their experiences in the city, and they'll tell you what the issues are. Yeah. So.
Well, I think that's part of the issue too, and I've talked about this on the show before, is that, you know, we have a problem with youth violence, and I feel that a lot of times we're talking to the kids who are already looking for those outlets, whether it's a community center or after school, you know, sports activities, but we're not really going in and talking to the kids who are having the issues, sitting down with them and saying, hey, Francisco, why do you feel it's necessary to, you know, hang out with your boys and carry a gun? Yeah. And those are the conversations that we need to be having. So is that something that you, if you became an elected official, would kind of hopefully start talking to those kids directly instead of the ones that are already reaching out to get into those programs?
Yeah, we definitely have to, you know, really refocus our outreach. And I think that it requires a cross-sectoral approach. You'll hear me throughout the campaign season refer to a cross-sectoral approach. a lot, because I believe that that's truly the answer when it comes to youth outreach. We have kids who, we serve in our public schools between the hours of 7 a.m. and 3 p.m., and then we just let them loose.
Right.
They have all this time on their hands, and we're not providing them with other options, and we're not providing them with wraparound services when they need them, when it comes to things like, mental health. Teenagers are going through a lot.
Right.
Ayanna Presley, who will be on the show later, she was a strong advocate for BPS's new wellness policy. I just want to see that wellness policy extend beyond the traditional learning day.
Right.
And I want to tap into our community centers and our nonprofit orgs in the community and see how they can continue that education outside of the classroom.
There are also a number of other issues. We talked a little bit about public safety. What do you think needs to be done as a city councilor, if you're elected, to sort of bridge that gap that some people have identified between the Boston police and residents in the city? Yeah,
well, I can say that the Black community has a completely unique experience when it comes to policing in the city of Boston. Many candidates speak about an increase of police presence being the ultimate solution to solving crime in Boston, and I don't think that that's the case. I think that we have to empower communities. We have to make people feel like, these streets are theirs. How do we empower neighborhood watch programs? How do we strengthen our schools and our after-school programs so that they are, exercising the necessary preventative measures before these young people are engaging in acts of violence or drugs.
Right.
So.
Yeah, there needs to be a little bit of a coordinated effort
Exactly.
to reach out to people. So I just want to remind people at home that if you're not registered to vote yet, you have until September 4th to do so. And of course, after you watch the show, you know that I talk about people needing to vote every single election, not just presidential elections. Municipal elections are probably the most important election that you should be voting in. So please, if you are not registered to vote, make sure you do that. So this is probably, for you, one of the times that you're just able to go across the city into neighborhoods you've never been to before. Yeah. What surprises you most about the city?
That, every neighborhood I've gone to so far, what comes up most is youth and education. And that's great. It's great to be coming into contact with all of these people that otherwise I wouldn't have had the opportunity to. And they're all speaking about the next generation of Bostonians and what we can do to help them, take leadership roles in the future and remain here and rebuild the city. So.
That's great. What's your favorite neighborhood to travel in?
I love Jamaica Plain. I wish I could afford Jamaica Plain.
I'm going to stop you right now because for, the time that we've been doing this with having the candidates on, one of the things I always ask is which neighborhood do you like? And more often than not, people say JP, and then it leads me into this, which is that you have to go to FOMU on Center Street. It's the vegan ice cream on Center Street.
Wow.
So I'll recommend it, and now you have to go.
I'll be there.
That's what I'm telling you. So one of the things, as the city councilor, some of the things you're working on certainly are policy, you vote on the budget, but a lot of it is constituent services. So how, in your mind, what is the most important delivery of service to the residents?
Yeah, I definitely want to be a counselor who is well connected to the communities throughout the city. I plan to have yearly forums in every community. I plan to have open office hours in each neighborhood. I don't want to be an elected official who you have to make an appointment to come see and go through all of this, metal detectors and screenings because you have to come to my downtown office.
Yeah. You say that now, but if you're elected and you have to
yeah,
go
and I see that new schedule.
Be like, where's the sleep?
No, I'm just going to try to be out there in the communities as much as I am now. I don't know if that's realistic, but it's something I'm going to strive to do.
Do you see that when you're out there campaigning and talking to people, are the issues similar, or are they, you mentioned the youth and schools, but are they all like in the same vein about youth and education, or is it other stuff that comes up that, maybe there's something somebody said to you that you were surprised and you've never even thought about that, I've never heard that, never thought about that, and figured, how would I solve that problem if I'm elected?
Yeah, again, youth in schools comes up the most. It's an issue that transcends neighborhood boundaries, but also crime and violence, the environment, how we make Boston a greener city. The most interesting thing that came up was this week in West Roxbury, a 15-year-old Boston Latin student named Greta, hi Greta, came up to me after the forum and she said, well, you know, all of you candidates say you want to make Boston a more walkable city and a bike-friendly city, but what about the water fountains in the winter? Why aren't they winterized? And I was just like, wow, like
Yeah.
that's what it's all about. It's,
Right.
that's in my mind what being an at-large counselor would be all about. Having all of these new ideas introduced.
Yeah.
And it made so much sense when she said it, and I was just like, I never even thought about it, so.
Yeah, I didn't even know there was a thing to winterize the fountains.
Exactly.
Didn't even know how to start, so we'll leave that up to the professionals. So if people wanted to learn more about you, how can they find you?
Well, I do have a web presence, franciscolwhite.com. I'm also on Twitter. I'm addicted to social media, and it's been to my benefit throughout the campaign. I'm on Twitter at Francisco L. White, and my campaign committee is also on Facebook, Committee to Elect Francisco L. White.
Great, so you're everywhere.
I am, I try to be.
Another thing, I want to just quickly touch on education, because we've talked about that a little bit. Charter schools is a big issue this year, people asking if, you know, we should lift the cap. So what's your opinion on whether or not we should lift the cap?
No, it's an easy answer. I don't even want to discuss lifting the charter school cap until we can ensure equal quality for students in every neighborhood. As I said earlier, regardless, without regard to race and income.
Right.
We haven't tackled that yet. We haven't resolved the achievement gap, so I don't want to see charter schools.
And
until
as
we resolve that.
a high school dropout, at what point did you realize, or yeah, I'm sure you did, but at what point did you realize, wow, my education really is important and this is something I should have focused on when I was in high school? And what actually made you drop out?
For me, I'm an openly gay man, so for me it was issues of bullying and just really not feeling like the educational environment was safe for me. I immediately went and took my GED test, like in a matter of weeks. But interestingly enough, I didn't start community college until 23. And there was, in that gap of time, I just felt like, you know, well, how much is an education really going to do for me? I became completely disillusioned with, you know, the concept of the American dream and going to school and getting your BA, because I found that I had to work.
Right.
I overcame homelessness at 19.
Really?
Yeah, I did. And I worked full-time through community college, and I worked when I transferred to Newberry College here outside of Boston, full-time. Wow. So it was a challenge.
Yeah, so you bring a really great perspective as an openly gay man, somebody who's dropped out of school and then gone on to, you know, go back to school, get an education. You were homeless, as you just mentioned. So it's pretty interesting, and I mean, it's obviously something that probably strikes people when you're out there campaigning.
You know, mine is not a unique story. There are so many people that I've come into contact with since I've been running this campaign who have a very similar story. So, you know, that's another reason why I'm running. I just want to be a voice for communities that feel marginalized or underrepresented and people who feel like their voice hasn't been heard at City Hall.
Right.
So.
Did you think it was going to be as time-consuming when you first started?
I had no idea what this was all going to entail. It's just a blessing, and it's been so exciting, and I'm so fortunate to be in this position. Just 4 months ago, I was working part-time at MassVote.
Yeah.
A year ago, I was just a student.
Yeah.
So it's just a great experience.
That's awesome. Well, I want to wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
There's about 40 days before people go to the polls and pick their 4 candidates. So
Yes.
hopefully we'll see you after September.
I hope so. Thank you.
You're welcome. And we will be right back with City Councilor Ayanna Presley. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back. My guest now is City Councilor Ayanna Presley. If you're just tuning in, we're continuing our series where we're having at-large City Council candidates come onto the program. If you have a question, you can call us here at 617-708-3290. Another reminder, there are 40 days until Election Day, the preliminary, and if you have not yet registered to vote, you have until September 4th to do so. Welcome back to the show.
I'm thrilled to be back, and I love the new set.
I know, isn't it great?
It's
David did such a great job.
fantastic, yeah.
So David's our studio manager, and he makes everything very nice here.
Yes,
So-
he does. We love being in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're running again for re-election. There was a lot of talk about whether or not you would run for mayor, but you have decided to run, like I said, for re-election.
That's right.
So why decide to stay on the city council and not run for mayor?
So I am enthusiastically and vigorously running citywide for re-election to my 3rd term. I really love being a city councilor. And, but what I will say is that I think the interest from my supporters and the encouragement for me to strongly consider running for mayor is about so much more than me and my candidacy, and has everything to do with the issues that I champion. And I think that that encouragement that I was getting to look at that race seriously is really a mandate on that agenda. And so what I'm focused on is making sure that whoever is the next mayor is going to make those issues a priority.
And tell people what those issues are.
Well,
They should know because, you are running for your third term and you've been out there and you've been
Absolutely.
active,
I appreciate the opportunity to punctuate that a little bit more specifically. The audience, your viewers may not recall, but when I was elected to the council in 2010, I became the first woman of color elected to the body. I am currently the only woman serving on that 13-member body, and felt strongly that there were a set of issues that disproportionately impact women and girls that were not being addressed by the council. And also some broader sort of social determinants and issues such as trauma and poverty, issues that I think people had considered too awesome in scope for a municipal body to attack. Or perhaps issues that disproportionately impact women and girls that people would try to silo and marginalize. And I really don't believe there's any such thing as women's issues or girls' issues. Any issue that's impacting grandmothers and mothers and daughters and sisters is impacting whole families and entire communities. And so those issues that I've been working on, teen pregnancy and human trafficking and domestic violence and sexual violence and fighting for more women in police and fire and the trades, I think are germane and relevant to this body.
Must be pretty exciting, though, looking at the candidates now for at-large city councilor, that there are so many women who are on the ballot.
Absolutely. I am, it's funny you would mention that. I actually just finished an op-ed about that very thing, really saluting the women of the past who served on that body and celebrating the number of women who have had the courage to run and or to put their name up and then have successfully placed on the ballot. It's been over a decade since there were 4 women serving on the Boston City Council. And I do just want to say, as someone who champions diversity, I champion all diversity. And I think that government is stronger and more effective when there is a diversity of perspective and opinion and thought. And that diversity needs to be of neighborhood and intergenerational and socioeconomic and gender and orientation. And so that's why it has been so heartening to see the diversity reflected in this at-large field. It's a very talented field.
And also all the women on the ballot and all the men, let's not forget about them.
Yes,
you all
certainly not.
You all have different perspectives and different things that you're passionate about. And it's very exciting for people to watch so many people running, but it also must be very frustrating for some of you because you're going to these forums and it's literally wall-to-wall candidates. And so trying to get your words in and, remind people if they voted for you in the past, why they should vote for you again. If they didn't vote for you before because they weren't registered, just moved here.
Well, I would say it is challenging, it is daunting to run citywide every 2 years. And if I had my druthers, the terms would be 4 years, actually, for a host of reasons, but we won't get into that right now. But I love what I do. And I think the benefit of incumbency is that you do have a record. And I believe I have a good and a strong one because I've been working hard my 3 years on the council. And so I like being able to go out there and connect with voters and tell them that story. But more than that, to really hear from them. I didn't run for office because I felt I had all the answers. I ran for office, and certainly for the offices closest to community, because I wanted to work with community to develop the best solutions, to really be in symbiotic partnership. And for so many of the issues that I've been successful on, the wellness policy for Boston Public Schools, the work that I'm doing right now around liquor license reform.
You just had a hearing yesterday?
Yesterday, absolutely. But all of that came out of actively listening to the people that I represent and serve, and then building a broad-based coalition to advance that in a very thoughtful way.
Talk about the wellness initiative.
Yes. So when I joined the council, I created this new standing policy committee, which I chair, and it's called the Committee on Women and Healthy Communities. One of the issues that the committee works on is teen pregnancy, and that was the first hearing order that I filed. And I did that because as someone who wants to break cycles of poverty and violence, it was one of the common denominators. And after a decade of decline, we were seeing an increase in teen pregnancy, and I wanted to know why. And one of the takeaways from that hearing was a lack of sex education. Now, I never want to supplant or replace the role of parents. That education should be beginning at home. But what we learned from parents at the hearing is that they weren't having those discussions.
Exactly.
They didn't know how to have those discussions.
Yeah.
And people may find that shocking in 2013, but the other thing is that there are a lot of grandparents raising grandchildren who've already raised their kids who don't know how to have those conversations. And so what was happening is that we had a lot of young people who were getting their education from pornography, from the internet, and a lot of misinformation from their peers.
Right.
And so I developed this broad-based coalition and work to develop a wellness policy that includes a comprehensive sex and health education curriculum that is age appropriate, includes abstinence, is medically accurate, and culturally competent. And I do just want to say that that is not about how to have sex. This is about acknowledging that 56% of Boston Public School students in a youth risk behavior survey said that they are sexually active, that the two top reasons that our young people seek support from our school-based health centers are for sexual health questions or mental health challenges. And I want to teach them healthy behaviors and put them on a pathway.
Well, I remember taking sex ed in school, and it was never about the sexual aspect of sex. It was all about the mechanics of, here's what a woman's body looks like, here's what a man's body looks like. So to me, it's always mind-boggling when I hear people talk about, we can't be teaching kids about having sex, and that's not right, and blah, blah. It's like, you're teaching them about themselves.
The states that have an abstinence-only curriculum have the highest numbers of teen pregnancy and STI. So clearly that doesn't work. But again, this is about how to have to have sex in a healthy way. This is about sexuality. This is also about healthy behaviors and relationships. We've seen a rise in intimate partner teen violence. And so what we find is a lot of young people didn't even know they were in an unhealthy relationship. And once they are given access to that information, they make different choices. And the last thing I would say about that is, the reason why this is so very important is that there are a lot of life variables that get in the way of the scholastic success of our children. And in order to eliminate those disparities and those barriers, we need this curriculum, because if they're engaging in high-risk sexual behavior, they could engage in other high-risk behavior.
Exactly, and parents have, I would assume, the right to say that their kids shouldn't be.
There is an opt-out clause. There's an opt-out clause. But what we heard resoundingly was that parents wanted this, and that kids needed it.
Yeah, and I think you're right, because some parents, they don't want to go anywhere near that topic with their kids, which is unfortunate.
They need the tools.
Again, I took sex ed in high school, like I said, but my mother had a book that we all read. It was like a cartoon kind of book, and I just wrote like where babies come from or something like that, and it was just we all had that talk at the appropriate age. But parents really just don't do that.
They don't, and they need the tools. And so, and again, it should begin at home. But if it isn't happening, so if it is happening at home, when you come to school, it's going to be enhanced and supplemented. If you're not getting it at home, then you get the whole education there. So after 3 years, we have seen that wellness policy adopted, and I was very proud to have led that charge on the municipal level.
Great. And tell me about the liquor license hearing yesterday, because of course the city of Boston does not control their liquor licenses.
That's right.
The state controls it.
Yes.
So what was your hearing about?
Yeah, well, yesterday's hearing was the culmination of a year of work that I've been doing to prepare for that very moment. As someone who represents the entire city of Boston, all 22 neighborhoods, I really feel it's my charge to work on those issues that are neighborhood transcendent. And it was apparent to me that there was a real inequity in our main streets. And as someone who's looking to promote healthy communities, I know what's critical to a healthy community is a thriving Main Street, a thriving business district. And I really believe that restaurants have a critical role in transforming neighborhood, in creating jobs, in improving the bottom line for our economy, and in building community. And so my focus is really on how do we improve the process and make it easier for aspiring entrepreneurs to procure an alcohol license. The current process is confusing and cost prohibitive. And I think that the control should be returned to municipalities because we know best how to economically revitalize our neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And it won't circumvent the neighborhood process. In fact, I think it will strengthen it.
Right.
But my home rule also proposes two key things. So lift the cap,
Yep.
return control to municipalities,
Yeah.
and it eliminates the transfer of licenses.
Which is, that's a huge issue.
Huge, out of empowerment zones,
Yeah.
urban renewal, and transit-oriented developments.
Yeah.
That's really critical.
And if people at home don't know what we're talking about, what we're saying is that if I open a restaurant and I have a liquor license and then I close my shop, I can turn to you if you're opening your own place. And if you have enough money, let's say $500,000, I can transfer you my liquor license and, you can pay me the $500,000.
And it goes to the highest bidder. So, so let me just give an example. There's a great deal of investment happening in Roxbury and the Dudley area,
Yeah.
and even
My
our
new neighborhood.
And even exactly, and even our mayor would counter that Dudley isn't just the center of Roxbury; it's the center of the city.
Yep.
It's a major transit hub, and so I'm very, encouraged after the decades-long advocacy that we're going to see a renaissance there and BPS administrative offices placed in the Ferdinand.
It's very exciting.
My concern, however, is that at the end of that workday, those employees will just go home. And at the end of the day, we will not be building wealth and opportunity, and we won't be building community. What you want is for people to sit down and spend money.
Well-
And just again to explain that restaurants, so in order to have a healthy community, you need a thriving Main Street. Restaurants have a role to play, and they can't succeed without a beer and wine or full alcohol license.
Speaking of education, we have a caller who has a question about education. Caller, are you there?
Good evening.
Hi, what's your question?
My question is for the counselor. How is she going to fix the educational system?
That's plain and simple. How are
Okay.
you going to work to fix the Boston public school system?
Yeah, well, I've been working on that, I believe, with some, key sort of incremental steps. The first issue is that, again, there's a disparity. And so we have a lot of schools that are successful, just like we have neighborhoods that have a thriving Main Street. But success that isn't shared really isn't success at all.
Right.
And so what I want is an equity. And so the conversation is not really about geography as much as it really is about quality. And if every school is quality, then we won't have to be having these discussions and developing algorithms to determine where our children should go to school.
Right.
Specifically related to the achievement gap, I believe that what contributes to that is when children are living in environments that are dysfunctional and impoverished and unstable. You cannot talk about preparing our children for a workforce or for college when they don't even have a readiness to be receptive to learn anything when they walk in the doors. And that's why I have been championing and fighting hard for wraparound supports, socio-emotional wellness supports, school nurses, and we've seen an increase of 5 because of my advocacy, psychotherapists and guidance counselors, so the teachers can focus on teaching.
Right.
Because I was meeting too many teachers who were having to play the role of social worker.
Right.
And so I think that is one thing that's really critical to closing the achievement gap in turning our schools around. But again, it's a much broader conversation, and I guess for the larger framework, what I would say is that we really have got to be serious about combating poverty.
Absolutely. I want to give you the opportunity really quickly to tell people where they can find you online, and we have to wrap up. So.
Oh my goodness. Well,
It goes by
time
so
flies when you're
fast.
having
I
fun,
know,
and we
right?
always have fun with you, Seth. So again, my name is Ayanna Presley. I am running for re-election to my 3rd term. I've been an at-large city councilor since 2010. And I am reachable at my council office at 617-635-4217. And then you can also find me on social media at Ayanna Presley on Twitter. And you should feel free for callers who couldn't get through or the caller who just called who would like to have a more extensive conversation. I would welcome that opportunity. You can email me directly at info@ayannapresley.com. And you can go to my website to see my position papers on a number of things.
Perfect. I want to thank you so much for being here and wish you the
Thank
best of luck in
you.
40 days. Can you believe it's almost here?
No.
So just stay tuned. We'll be back with Douglas Juan, and we'll be right back. Thanks. Hello and welcome back to the program. I am Seth McCoy. My guest right now is Douglas Juan. My 3rd and final guest for the night. He is one of the many people running for the at-large city council seat. Just a reminder to people at home, there are 4 council seats for at-large, so you have 4 votes when you go to the polls. And so Douglas, I want to welcome you to the program. And I want to start off by saying and asking why you're running.
Thank you for inviting me first. And my name is Douglas Juan, and I like to spell my name because I'm jokingly said I've been Bostonian for 35 years, but one of my colleagues still calls me Wong and spell me W-N-G, W-H. So my name is W-O-H-N, and it pronounces as exactly as if you count one.
Yep.
So one of my friends gave me a catchphrase, one for one Boston,
Yeah.
one for everyone. I have more.
You have more slogans?
Plus, all these, they're coming from this, one for all for one. What? My name will be on number 8 in the ballot,
Yeah.
and number 8, number 1 in your heart. I'll repeat it at the end, but
Yeah.
and the reason I came out is, I worked in the city of Boston more than almost 30 years, and I hope it's not too late to come out, and I need to do better work, and I wanted to work with the people and serve people better, and I've been Plans and Zoning Division at ISD 1010 myself. I had my own first-hand experience pulling the permit of my own permit, and that was cruciating. And
Well, which is funny that you say that, because as somebody who works for inspectional services and should probably, I don't want to say get a free pass or get an easy in and out. If it was frustrating for you, who's worked for the city for 30 years, it's
okay.
people at
Seth.
home who've actually gone through the process are probably
So-
like, yes.
I want to come out and actually share, because I've been seeing many people meeting the homeowners, and sometimes a young couple coming in, and by the time when the permit was issued, I hear him that she left him, and it took a few months, but it's and in this campaign many candidates talk about permitting process, and it's also a state building code involved, and that requires certain professionals, registered design professionals, and I hear candidates all about the small business owners, what about the homeowners, and for homeowners more than 3 units or more, it requires stamping and signing of registered design professionals such as architect or engineers,
Right.
and small restaurant owners, and why can you turn around like a 2 or 3 or 4 weeks? No, it has to be designed and plans needs to be stamped and signed by, again, designer or architect or engineers, and it involves sub-permits, health inspections, and so it's not that simple. So I've been educated and trained as an advocate architect. I'm an architect, registered architect, and I came here 1978 to MIT Graduate School of Architecture and Urban Studies, and it was a good training. It was a little bit surprising to me at the time, because I came in with a white dream and big dreams, but then what they taught me is be real in the real world,
Yeah.
and I struggled, but then my brain had been changed, and I still want to get some more dreamy architectures, architects' drawings. But anyhow, so working with the people is the reason, and also share their frustration. Too often times I heard and I hear frustration. Why is it taking too long? Why do we have to do this? Too many dotting the I's, too many crossing the T's, and we have to send the people to the other public works, parks, sometimes if there's a nearby,
Right.
Open spaces there, BRI design review and screening and buffering. It's all zoning codes. Even the mayoral candidates talked about a lot in permitting
There are
processes.
a lot of hoops to go through
Yeah.
for a permit process.
But it is our everyday life, including me, when I try to pull my own permit, and one of my 9 colleagues interprets slightly different than I did. What is the setback? What is the alignment of all the houses on the same block?
Right.
And you have to align it. Oh, can you then little further setback? And because this is my house, I want a little setback. I think I could do that, but then others. So it's interpretational.
Did you think you were going to run ever, or was this the first time that you sat back and said, you know what, I'm going to run now because I know that there are two people running for mayor and it's a good time to run? Or again, was it something that you thought throughout your life, oh, maybe I'll run for office one day?
Well, let me talk this way. When I actually, was it 8 years? The person called Sam Yoon showed up, and
Yep.
whoa,
Yep.
geez, he's an Asian American, and he can run. Well, it was very surprising.
Yeah.
I never imagined anybody come. But then he disappeared. So I wanted to see some other person come and fill up the big gap that he left, and so and also raising my 3 kids. They all 3 kids went into MECO, and you know MECO.
Right,
system.
yeah, so.
Well, again, this is American life. When I came in, I thought it was easy, and it's not.
Right.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's fight. You have to get everything that you have to earn it and fight it. And my wife, 20 years ago. Well, my next building is, I live in JP, and lived in more than 20 years. And
Another candidate who's mentioning JP, which I've said to every candidate who comes on who mentions JP, that you have to go to FOMU, which is my favorite ice cream place. They have a location in JP and one in Alston, so they're right on Center Street.
FOMU, what's the
FOMU.
favorite flavor?
Oh my gosh, probably the salted caramel, but
Okay.
I love them all, so.
Sounds like, is it Asian word when you say FOMU?
It's F-O and then
Yeah.
a dash M-O, or
Okay,
M-U, I'm
FOMU.
sorry, and
All
it's
right.
they're
It's
vegan,
It's an ice cream shop.
and they're vegan, yeah, so
All
it's
right.
dairy-free.
All right. So where was I?
Oh, David's talking in my ear and he says it's French for fake cow.
Wait a minute, I lost where I was. what was it?
You were talking about living in JP.
Yeah.
And we were talking
And then
about,
right next building is Hennigan High School, Hennigan Elementary School. My first kid, my wife especially, couldn't decide to send my first daughter to the next door.
right,
Why? And somehow we are not happy for the environment. It's because the first playground is asphalt, and we don't like it. Asphalt is,
Right.
why is it a playground for kids is asphalt, paved?
right,
And I heard this. Anyhow, we struggled to look around, and we once sent 1 year in parochial school. I'm not a Catholic. I'm a Presbyterian. Happen to be. Doesn't matter, but I'm a
Right.
Christian, and so we sent her to try one parochial school in a uniform, and then one day school, a nun called us, and something happened. Boys studied or girls studied. Who studied first? And
right.
so we don't like. Well, we'd like to have we need to try public schools, and we came across the MECO, and it was not easy to get in. And
Yeah.
It's a long list, and we were so lucky to get into that. But anyhow, it's a very unique, to some it's a very controversial, but it's very, very, how it's studied, and it's a
Right.
story of
Do you
4
think
years.
that the charter school cap should be lifted?
I'm a little cautiously in favor of it. Some are doing fine, very well, but the others, but if you suddenly spread too fast, it could hamper a well-balanced improvement all citywide, all schools. And I myself pride myself as one of the best product of public school education system. I feel I went to the actually best high school, best middle school. That was an example. It's like a Boston Latin school here.
Yeah,
It's very, very competitive. But anyway, well, actually, that best school was, what do I say? That they changed the system so that school didn't have to be too good, too excellent.
right,
That means that the school administration wanted to develop a well-balanced improvement, all citywide, all other schools. It's too excessive measure, but here, MECO is also statewide public school system.
Right.
So I believe in and pursuing the excellence of public education system, but
Absolutely.
also favorite and where it can be, but wait and watch kind of approach.
So you live in
And-
JP, and what's been the most surprising thing since you started campaigning, if you're going to a different neighborhood that maybe you haven't been to a certain neighborhood before, and maybe find little things that surprise you about
Well,
it?
when I collected to try to get a ballot, I went to, I think almost half of my signatures were collected in Douglas Station, and the other half is Roach Brothers.
Yeah,
And
Roach Brothers is the place to go.
I see a very, very contrast. I don't know, people,
Yeah.
and also, in a few perspectives, that's a big. So we are melting pot, but it's not really well balanced, well mixed. So that's, for example, Douglas Station. I see people more. Smoking people more there, and I see some obesity of people, and I want to change that, and we have that's a health issue. By the way, I have platforms. I have e-words platforms. I think I should
Yes, absolutely, before we run out of time.
And I'm an architect. I'm very sensitive to the. So I have several e-words and platforms. E as healthier economy for everyone, and E as better education for everyone, and having raised my 3 kids in an ecosystem. E as healthier eco-environment for everyone, and as an architect, I'm sensitive to energy. Energy efficiency for every house, every building, for every homeowner, for everyone. And importantly, E as healthier equality and equity in terms of gender and race. And the ultimate E word would be the better sustainable earth for all, everyone. So I like to repeat that in the end.
Yeah.
But
There are a lot of issues that are facing the city, so it's important that whoever is elected from mayor to city council, that they're all focused on doing good work for the residents of the city.
yeah, as an architect and educated urban studies and housing, I was majored in housing methodology, and my advisor came from Netherlands and kind of Dutch housing, and it's all participation. It's all about participation, and the theory of his architectural theory is believing in the occupants, the habitation, and the owner, occupants, the power of those people.
Right.
They can
Well,
change.
You mentioned participation, and one of the things that we talk about on the show a lot is that voter participation is not where it should be. So, for example, in presidential elections, we have higher voter turnout, but for municipal elections, we have a lower voter turnout, especially in a non-mayoral year, which is an issue we've talked about here, is whether or not to extend the term of city councilors from 2 to 4 years, which I think should happen. It saves money and also makes more sense. But how do we, whether you're elected or not, how do we encourage people to be active and make sure that they're registering to vote and going to vote?
I'm a beginner at campaigning, my first time, so I don't have a good answer on that. And since I'm running by myself, and now I can tell, and I really need to mobilize the people that I need to get a vote. And how do I do that? But from the other side, I don't know how can they be motivated by themselves.
Right.
First, maybe perhaps. If I campaign like a rock star, then they can.
Exactly.
Maybe I need to do that
Exactly.
to get motivate them.
Yeah.
Or so.
Yeah, it's difficult, and it must be hard. I mean, you're going out there and you're campaigning across the city, and it's a lot of work to campaign.
I like to go every corner of the neighborhood, every corner of the community in East Boston, and I say. We have a dozen neighborhoods from East Boston. They have to determine their destiny, whether they're going to have a casino or not. Right. If it comes to Everett, I think Charleston is going to be more concerned than East Boston. So if it comes to either Everett or East Boston, if I have to choose, I'd rather have it in East Boston, and let East
So you
Boston
support a
decide.
casino? And
It's not exactly equals that,
Right.
but if it comes, if it'll have to come to us close to,
Right.
2 sites, which one would you choose?
you'd rather have it in
Would
the
you
city
choose-
than-
Would you favor Everett or East Boston? Let me ask you if you can answer it.
I would rather have it someplace away from the city.
Well, if it comes to Everett and Boston, because I can't foresee it, but
Yeah.
those 2 sites are very favorable sites, it seems to me. So East Boston has to decide. But again, if it comes ever to East Boston, we have to make a determination that we will have to make it as a miracle green environment and as a destination for tourists, all those
Right.
things. because historically all the other casinos doesn't benefit in its surrounding neighborhood. It's a historical empirically a fact.
So real quickly, because we're running out of time, remind people why they should vote for you and if they can find you online or social media.
My name is Wohn, W-O-H-N, and I'm for One Boston, and I'm for everyone, and I'm standing on E platforms. E as healthier economy for all, and E as a better education for all, E as better, healthier eco-environment and better energy efficiency, and E as healthier economy and healthier equality, equity, and ultimately E as better sustainable earth. One for all for one.
Perfect. I want to thank you so much for
right.
being here tonight, and I want to thank everybody at home for tuning in. If you missed any part of the show, you can tune in to our Facebook page or our YouTube channel. If you haven't already followed us there, you should definitely do that. You can follow me on Twitter, Seth A. McCoy. And again, a reminder, September 4th is the last day that you can register to vote and vote in the preliminary at the end of September. This was the actually last show that we're having the at-large city council candidates on. So I want to thank all of them for being here during the last few months, and we will see you next time. Good night.